Welcome back, guys. Have you kept up? There's so much that happened in free agency. I'm having a massive headache trying to keep it all together. Corstian's been loving it. I also love it. I'm just trying to keep track of all the moves that happened. Like as we speak, Levante David just re-signed with the
Hmm.
Bucks, which is a huge move. We'll see what happens with Devin White. Um, but yeah, Corstian, how have you thought free agency has gone so far? At least the tampering part.
I think it's been really exciting. I think what was fun to see is all the running backs getting signed pretty quickly because I think a year ago, if we look at this, um, yeah, if we look at a year ago from now, I don't think any of these running backs get signed this quickly, in the tampering period, where I feel like a lot of teams are waiting, and even in the draft, uh, like I think there's a lot of stalling, which obviously was like a reason for some panic, I think, but for at least the running backs in the group. But here, I think it was a lot of fun just to see everybody, getting signed pretty quickly, and then it made for a lot of fun, storylines of like, man, these offenses are going to be OP, or these offenses lost like a big piece at the running back position because they just didn't have re-signs.
Yeah, I mean, we're not. This segment's just focused on like free agency, like
Mm-hmm.
signings that we think we like. Obviously, they're not official till Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. But you brought up like offenses. Um, I thought the Texans got way better, like adding Joe
Mm-hmm.
Mixon. I think the
Yeah.
contract they offered him after the trade was 1 year, 7 million. I'm like, that's a steal for Joe Mixon because you still got Damian Pierce. Like that's really good. Like it's clear cut now. Like what that running game runs through, and that's already a prolific offense. And just adding on a running game to that that's consistent. Like Joe Mixon's a star player, and that's only going to elevate the offense even more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. As I speak, Bears made another move. They agreed to terms with Jonathan Owens on a 2-year deal, defensive back from the Green Bay Packers. So Simone Biles is coming over. Hopefully, that's a Taylor Swift magic over here that we can get. Definitely doing a double twist clearly in my seat. So
Mm-hmm.
um, excited to hear that. But why don't we kick it off? Um, like I'll preface this by saying Corsan has 5 guys of like free agency signings he likes. I have my 5 guys. I have no idea what he's going to say. It could be along the lines of like what I had categorized in my list, but the surprise is going to be to you and me both. So, Koshan, why don't you go with your number 5 ranked free agency signings?
My number 5 signing was actually Robert Hunt, the offensive guard signing for the Carolina Panthers.
That was crazy. I was just talking about it off air. They
Mm-hmm.
shelled out 153 million among their guards. What did you like about this move?
Um, well, I think a big issue with Carolina last season, I mean, they had a lot of issues, but um, I feel like Bryce Young was just getting like knocked over all the time, and it was like their offensive line couldn't both stop the pass rush and they couldn't like support the run game, and so I think a huge part of this offseason for them was to go after just elite blocking talent, and I wouldn't be surprised if they even try to make another like attempt at a guy like Trent Brown, just keep on continuing to shore up the offensive line. They might wait for the for after the draft to kind of see where like pieces fall, because I know there's a couple good offensive linemen supposedly coming into this class, and so I think they might try to go for that. And then there's probably gonna be a couple vets that they plan on signing after the draft. That just to kind of shore up this offensive line, because I mean like it was pretty brutal for their offense last season with them just being unable to both have enough time for Bryce to throw and then just to rush, have like a solid rushing attack, so that the kind of pass plays could develop for him.
Yeah, definitely fair. I see the logic here. I think they're overpaying to be honest, but I think that the way their situation is, I don't think they have a choice. I think
Yeah.
they have to go out all out in free agency. And
Mhm.
if I'm them, they already extended 2 offensive guard contracts.
Mhm.
Um, I would keep hammering that. So if you're onto something with Trent Brown, keep hammering it through the draft because they don't have one
Mhm.
until like the 33rd pick, I think. And
Yeah.
um, really making sure that you at least have your lines like solidified for Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
is gonna get a lot more production out of your team. You might not make the playoffs next year. I want to put your expectations there.
Mm-hmm.
But again, think of this like the Detroit Lions situation. How did they move so quickly from like that 8-1 run to end the year 2 years ago to the playoff run they had now, where they were up by 17 in the NFC Championship game?
Mm-hmm.
They built it through the line and they built it through the draft. And I would
Mm-hmm.
continue to emphasize that at least in this first year. So you have a plan to protect Bryce Young, and then you can evaluate him. And I think this smart move by them to secure protection
Mm-hmm.
and make sure their quarterback doesn't get thrown in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like he still might get hurt because the nature of the NFL is violent, but you're at least like allocating and you're putting in the effort to protect him, and that's what I
Mm-hmm.
can appreciate about what the Panthers did.
Yeah, and and I agree that it is like a bit of an overpay, but I do think that in free agency, most teams end up overpaying for like the guys they end up getting, just because it is a bidding war for a lot of these guys, and so just whoever pays top dollar ends up getting them. And I mean that's the value of drafting well and then trying to re-sign your guys through that, because you typically can get like a slightly cheaper price on your own guys, but then free agency you pay the premiums to get the premium players basically.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think the thing is, um, I don't think teams regret like shelling out money for guards. So
Mm-hmm.
like, um, if you're overpaying for like guard play, like that you're basically overplaying for like offense, like time to throw the ball, like time to run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you could really fault like the Panthers for doing. Now, whether the player plays up to it, we'll see. But this is why I said double down, because if Hunt goes down and you don't have a backup plan, literally and figuratively, you're screwed. All that money's being that's when the money gets wasted. When you don't double down on your investments. Like and smart investments like this. So great number 5 pick. My number 5 pick is on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They steal a rival player and they get Patrick Queen. And this news came out today, linebacker. I love this move for the contract. I think it was 3 years, 41 million. That's a value in my opinion. You're paying him what 13.5 million per year, roughly, and um, stealing from the division, so you weaken the Ravens. Ravens have one of the best linebacking deals in the NFL. That looks to be gone. And then you strengthen your own linebacking corps that has TJ Watt and then Alex Highsmith. And I think this is a great move to shore up your front seven and try to address any defensive weaknesses you have as far as like stopping the run or
Mm-hmm.
and also like stopping the mismatches that you're getting linebackers and running backs when you're in the pass sets. So you can allow TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith to have more effective pass rushes. So I really like this move. I think having Roquan there for a year and a half in Baltimore is really going to help out Patrick Queen. And I think he's ready to take on a leadership role to help run the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that one too. I think um it was a good signing. I think it was like much needed for the Steelers, but then on like the Ravens side, it's like you got Roquan, and then you spent a decently high draft pick, or I think, or you ended up drafting a linebacker, which we both assumed, I think, at the start of the season was a kind of Patrick Queen phase out type of draft move right there, and so I think that, I mean, it makes sense why he was, Ravens didn't re-sign him. Kind of unfortunate for them that he went to the Steelers though.
Yeah, I think this move is not being talked about enough. Like, if you
Mm-hmm.
saw all the Giants fans, have a bunch of friends who got mad. Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles,
Mm-hmm.
and it was initially reported that Xavier McKinney also went to the Eagles. That was a fun saga. But yeah, imagine how Baltimore fans feel right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. My number 4 guy, kind of moving on to that. Trying to like I had my guys listed out. Um but He's like the guy I initially wrote down. I'll just go with him, and I'll have my honorable mentions later. Was Jonnu Smith to the Dolphins.
Interesting. Okay.
I think. Well, it's probably not like the biggest name ad for a team, but I think it was a really great value add for the Dolphins here. That I think, like, I don't know, it was just like it was like a missing piece from their offense. Where it's like I can't even name like off the top of my head the Dolphins tight end. It was like Durham Smith or something.
Durham Smith. Yep.
Yeah, and like I don't know, he just doesn't feel like much of anything. But then, like Jonnu Smith, I mean, like when you think of Jonnu Smith, it's like in the awful Falcons offense, he was kind of like somehow a bright spot. And obviously, I know game planning went into that, but I think he just kind of adds like a nice kind of middle of like the pace kind of feel in comparison to like the like really high speed offense. I know he's like faster than average tight end, but like I feel like you get more just kind of options in that kind of shorter play field, kind of more in the middle when you got guys like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, who are guys that, you know, defenses prep for to stretch the field. And he's still a guy that can beat linebackers over the middle and just kind of be another speed threat, but like in a different way for this Miami offense.
Yeah. It could be an improvement. I think it might help in the run blocking as well. It remains to be seen. Like, he's good yards after catch guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what they're trying to go for here is if you're going to key in on Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill with your secondary,
Mm-hmm.
we need to find a guy who can pose a mismatch on linebackers. And Jonnu Smith can do that, but he's really good if he's like in open space and he has a
Mm-hmm.
field of grass to use his yak ability.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on Mike McDaniel to kind of create the room for him. I like the move. I'm not like ecstatic about the move.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because I think there were more enticing options out there, like an Irv Smith who went to Kansas City. I think I would have taken a chance there and seen what you got out of that, and or maybe look in the draft to get like a young athletic tight end that can grow. But I don't hate it. I just feel okay about the move.
Yeah, and so that's why I was kind of conflicted about it. Where it's like it's probably not like the biggest like wow factor signing, but I do think that it's a really strong underrated signing that probably people will overlook that can pay really high dividends for the Miami offense. That people, it's kind of like a surprisingly like he played surprisingly well. He puts up surprisingly good numbers. And it was kind of like just like a nice little boost that the Dolphins really needed to take the next step. Is kind of like my POV on this, where I know we have like a bit of honorable mentions guys here, but like I think that, you know, in that same tier, I would put guys like Frankie Louv or like Bryce Huff, and kind of just like they're probably a little bit more of like a flashy signing that I could have put it at for, but I don't know. I just thought it was kind of like a fun signing for the Dolphins here that I think will get overlooked quite a bit.
Yeah, no, you brought it up in Atlanta. I think, like as far as like market value, like people are devaluing Jonnu Smith because they're like, oh, Arthur Smith just doesn't know how to use Kyle Pitts, and then like they're completely overshadowing that he did know how to use Jonnu Smith, and when Jonnu Smith was used in the right spots, he was producing a lot. He was outproducing Kyle Pitts, and I think Mike McDaniel's going to lean into how to use Jonnu Smith correctly, as opposed to saying like, how do I get like the most talented tight end I can? So to really support like the guys I want to prioritize signing, like Tua, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek. And maybe part of the reason why I think this is an okay signing is how they handled like Christian Wilkins and like a lot of their defensive members, especially when like most of their defensive ends like got hurt and had season injuries. So like, who's the linebacker? Van Ginkel. Like losing Van Ginkel and Christian Wilkins was a huge blow to that team. But I think a move like this is gonna like add another variable to the offense, which is never a bad thing. So good selection there. Another guy who can bring a different aspect to the offense, um, but I think allows this contending team to not lose over any sleep about losing a running back is when the Bengals signed Zach Moss. I
Mm-hmm.
love this move. I love this move a ton. I know when Jonathan Taylor went down, I was like, I don't know about Zach Moss because he didn't exactly star in Buffalo, and I don't know if he's even going to get the workload. And he just produced every time he was asked. Um, I think the contract's 2 years, 15.5 million. Great, great value. Like compared to the running backs, like you see Eckler got. Um, they all got around the same range, but like rather than trying to invest in a guy like Josh Jacobs and try and get like a catch-all running back that can do some of the things that Mixon did, Cincinnati got a cheaper version of that and a chance to add it in the draft. I love this move for the Bengals. Um, they didn't went out of their way to like overpay for Joe Mixon just to keep him when they're still trying to work on extension talks with T Higgins and like Jamar Chase coming down the line. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think this is going to be great for the running game, and they might not be done addressing that room, but this is a great start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that they had like a good. Except like I liked how Chase Brown kind of played down the stretch last season as well, and so it's like even if Zach Moss does struggle like a teensy bit, I think they kind of prepped with just kind of different guys that they think can get the job done, but obviously Zach Moss assurance based off last season's play also is like a pretty solid. Just kind of moved to kind of move on from Joe Mixon, especially with that price tag that obviously he demands, because it's like sure he's not like quite the flashy kind of elite player that you want from a running back, but he is like a steady player, and that's been getting like 1,000 yards the last 4 seasons or so, and so he definitely demands like a decent-ish contract amongst like the older running backs, but it's obviously hard to pay that when you have such a expensive looking offense with the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I love the move exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Great value play, similar to like
Mm-hmm.
Jonnu Smith on what you said, but I think Zach Moss is going to get similar production to Joe
Mm-hmm.
Mixon, which is great. Great. Just because how he's being used and like
Mm-hmm.
that the fact that he's evolved as a player. So he's not the same. Don't look at this as like Buffalo Bills, Zach Moss. Um, he's definitely got a lot of talent. Like he was always great at Utah, like interior tough running.
Mm-hmm.
That was his strengths. But now he can do he's a little bit more versatile, and I think he's going to surprise people.
Mm-hmm.
One one news I just saw from Adam Schefter: Raekwon Davis, defensive tackle for the Miami Dolphins, is signing a 2-year, $14 million deal with the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm.
I think they still have Buckner, right? That's going to be a great
Yeah,
pairing.
I do think so. Yeah.
Wow, like Miami just keeps losing people, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like wow, I do not know how they're going to recover that defense they've losing. That is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a part of it is, I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, they did have like a couple signings, but I think a big part of it is just changing like defensive coordinator, and so I wouldn't be surprised if like just your defensive philosophy changed so much that you kind of just want to start bringing in fresh, uh, new guys. Which obviously you might be downgrading players here and there, but if you want to get your guys, you get your guys, I guess, and that's the role that's the kind of the goal. That's the goal that they got from Miami, just because they had so many cuts.
Yep,
Mhm.
that's fair. Who's your number 3 guy?
My number 3 guy is guy you talked about a second ago, but Christian Wilkins. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I think. Yeah, like I mean, you keep on talking about him as like one of the key pieces that Miami lost. During this, and I think that with like the Raiders, they have a really strong like pass rush presence, but their interior line, I feel like that's kind of where it falls off a little bit, and so I think this guy just Wilkins is a solid interior guy that can kind of make for a strong 1-2 punch with Max Crosby on the edge, and so I think that's why I have this one so high. I mean, he speaks for himself. He's an elite player. Uh, I think any team that signs a guy like Christian Wilkins, I'd put him up here in my top 5 signings of the offseason, just because he's, at least from what we've seen from him so far, he is that type of player that is worthy of being like a top 5 free agency signing kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I didn't like about this is on the Raiders side, not the player.
Uh-huh.
Like, this was a heavy investment, heavy investment, and it leads me to think they have to draft a quarterback now because I don't know how you're gonna pay a quarterback like starter money or like Justin Fields like starter money with this kind of like rookie contract. Like how like viable it is to have a rookie contract while you're shelling out contracts to Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. Like, but from football perspective, great move. You basically have two Max Crosbys, the two like defensive like um front fours, front four people. I'm losing the term for it. Defensive tackle and edge rusher.
Yeah.
The two most feared edge rushers that Patrick Mahomes does not like facing. Christian Wilkins from the Dolphins and like Max Crosby. Like if you watch Patrick Mahomes, like he hates it when they start chirping at them. Those two specifically. And now you got them on the same team. Like Christian Wilkins is built exactly like Max Crosby. And like that defense is scary, man. It's getting scary. Like I when you have a league with like Patrick Mahomes and now Justin Herbert like paired up with Jim Harbaugh, and then who knows what the Broncos are going to do? But they have a great offensive mind with Sean Payton. You don't know how that's going to evolve. Maybe JJ McCarthy. Would you be interested in that? Um, yeah, but like regardless, like you need a front four that can get after these guys and sack them. And the Raiders did all they could to address this. Now they gotta try and help out Devontae Adams and whoever's Zamir White maybe, heir apparent, and really make sure that the offense doesn't put this defensive four investment that they put up to waste. Okay. I went on the offensive side of the ball, but staying in the AFC. We found about if you found out about this today as well. This team sourly disappointed in the AFC Championship game, and I think this move might be the scariest of them all, and it came at a value, which is why I didn't put Christian Wilkins up here at 3. Like you're basically getting the equivalent of Christian Wilkins in this guy, and now he's going to be part of the read option with Lamar Jackson. That is scary to think about. I have Derrick Henry going to the Baltimore Ravens at a contract of 2 years, 16 million, just half a million more than Zach Moss. I think that is a steal for the amount of years that contract is, and that like the element that Derrick Henry brings to a great offensive line of like that Baltimore has, and a guy like Todd Monken who's a great offensive mind. This offense is becoming like really difficult to defend now, like because now you don't have to. Now they can lean in on the ground game whenever they want, and I feel like they got too pass heavy, like towards the end to the playoffs, where it's kind of like you want to prove Lamar can throw when we know he can throw the ball, but like you lean into that too much. Now it's just kind of like if the passing game is not working and we get into like a 10-10 game again with the Kansas City Chiefs, try tackling Derrick Henry. See how that's going to turn out. And if you sell out to stop him, guess you got to deal with Lamar. Nobody wants to deal with that. So I think this might be one of the most underrated signings or best free agency addition by the season's end.
Yeah, I really like that signing as well. I think if I remember correctly, I saw a stat that was like Lamar Jackson has the most like rushing yards by a quarterback since 2018, and Derrick Henry has the most rushing yards in general since 2018. And so it's like
consistency, man. And they're not going away. They're not going away.
Yeah, so that'll be a really fun duo to see, especially because I've like over the like past couple seasons, I feel like Ravens running backs just kept on going down, like no matter who it be, you know, like there's that year that like it was like, oh, it's Gus the Bus Edwards time, you know, and then he like had a season-ending injury, and then J.K. Dobbins keeps on getting hurt. Edwards was good last season, but I think there were like a couple of games here and there that he might have missed or been not like 100%, and so
He's on the Chargers
hopefully,
now.
yeah. And so hopefully you got Derrick Henry here, who's mostly been healthy throughout the entirety of his career. You know, that stays healthy throughout the season, because even if he doesn't necessarily play to the same like level as he did with the Titans, just having like a good back stay healthy all season, I think would be just a huge bonus for the Baltimore offense.
Yep, that's fair. And then one signing I completely missed was Jalen Mills that signed a 1-year deal with the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Just disclaimer out there, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, we've gone on and on talking about like how prolific Baltimore's offense has been, and we dedicated an episode to say like they looked unstoppable, only for them to be stopped by the
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs. And I I think that even though the Chiefs repeated, I think Baltimore's still right up there. They got to figure out like how to navigate losing Patrick Queen, but
Mm-hmm.
and their defensive coordinator. But I think their offense is like I think their offense is still going to be bad, like in a good way. Like this is going to be a bad offense to try to deal with. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like you got Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers featured number one, Rashad Bateman. I think he'll find his footing. Mark Andrews, former number one option. He can be a number one option every given Sunday. Lamar Jackson, two-time MVP, and this is probably one of the best wide receiver classes, like as far as like hype and talent, like and depth. They could get a wide receiver from the third round who's really a number one option and add that as your slot receiver. And
Mm-hmm.
that'll be tough to defend. They don't have to re-sign OBJ if they don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if they want OBJ, I would be surprised if like he'd be down to come back on a discount, kind of for the team if he really like enjoy to stay here, especially just with his age and kind of just his lowering production. But um, yeah, and I think that I think they made the moves to try to prepare for like Patrick Queen's departure. So I'm obviously taking Roquan over Patrick Queen pretty much any given day.
True.
Even though Patrick Queen did have a phenomenal end of the season, because I know that was like the concern last season was, or entering the season, that he had like a down year or two, and so that was kind of the reason for them drafting a potential replacement. And seems like they just kind of continue with their game plan on that side of defense. But
Yep.
who's
number two?
Yeah, my number two is also a running back. This is Josh Jacobs to the Packers.
Okay.
Yeah. Here I just think that like all they really did was get younger with their running back position in terms of like I think the caliber of player with Aaron Jones and then going to Josh Jacobs. I think both are elite backs. They're both really efficient running backs, but I just kind of look at the age differential, and I just wonder like how much longer Aaron Jones can stay elite. But then I feel like I have like whatever that is, I feel like Josh Jacobs has a couple more on that. And just looking at how young this offense is in general, they're obviously looking to build something pretty long term, and having your elite running back just kind of get phased out like slowly, and just starting to have like a struggling run game kind of sooner rather than later, I think would be a pretty big hindrance. And so just getting a guy like Jacobs who can stay an elite rushing threat for the remainder of a couple of these like rookies contracts, I think will be a really nice piece to have to work around with.
Yeah, I saw this move and I was like, wow, great move for them. I assumed they were going to keep Aaron Jones, and I was like, if they keep Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs, that would be really scary. Aaron Jones ended up signing with the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know why Green Bay did that. It seems odd to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you give Aaron Jones the contract you gave Josh Jacobs? I think even at his age, I think Aaron Jones has proven enough that he can produce, and he is like the linchpin to that Green Bay offense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just look at him against the Cowboys. Every time he plays the Cowboys, he just produces. But like, he has that type of talent level, and I it was kind of like a lateral move to me, but I see the point here, and they could end up like addressing running backs in the
Mm-hmm.
draft. But there's nothing against Josh. Josh Jacobs is an excellent player. Excellent player.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of like, why didn't you keep Aaron Jones? So
Yeah.
The great signing for sure. Not happy about it as a Bears fan. Um, imagine trying to tackle Josh Jacobs. That's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
But
And then Jones is still in the division.
yeah, and you got to deal with Aaron Jones on Minnesota. Um, but they don't. They're figuring out the quarterback. Hopefully, Fields doesn't get traded there. I have.
Imagine.
I do not think Ryan Poles is going to do that. But sticking
It,
with
yeah.
Josh Jacobs here, like great talent, great talent. I think when he was like after his first year with John Gruden, like he just wasn't used right,
Hmm.
and especially with Josh McDaniels, not used right. And I think Matt LaFleur has proven like he wants to lean on the run game, so I would expect big numbers out of Josh Jacobs this year.
Hmm. Yeah. Um. Yeah, and like honestly, as this free agency has kind of gone on, it feels like the Bears draft plans kind of like setting more into stone as well in terms of like who it looks like they'll be taking out, kind of like the one, or and at least from my own perspective, just with like how quarterback signings have gone and kind of like the lack of trade spots available for Justin Fields. Obviously, there's still teams that I think could attempt to make a move for him, but I feel like it's diminishing quite a bit, and the fact that a trade hasn't been like sent out already kind of makes me think that Bears might be sticking with Justin Fields for this upcoming season as well, which I think is a good move for them.
Yeah, I think so too. They're on a positive trajectory. I really I really never understood the Caleb Williams to the Bears like move
Hmm.
because they had a talent like Justin Fields. If they had like a quarterback that wasn't producing at all and they got to their number one pick because they were bad just like 2 years ago,
Hmm.
that would be one thing. But I think the way the locker room is, you just got the cultural shift there. And I think this is not talked about enough because it's not just a plug and play Caleb Williams in here. Like Caleb Williams has to win the locker room. And like
Hmm.
everybody's gotta like he has to learn the offense. And Justin Fields has to learn the Waldron offense. I get it. But like Waldron's gonna see what Justin Fields did well. Like with
Hmm.
Caleb Williams, you haven't seen what he can do in the pros yet. And like he's really great off structure, but like you really don't know how he's going to perform in structure
Hmm.
against pro defenses until you really see him in like week one, not even the preseason. Like that's going to be the barometer here. And oh, we lost coach on there, but he's back. Okay, sweet. Um, yeah. So like my point being here is like you already know what Justin Fields can do. Help him out. Help him. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. sitting right there, top talent. Take him at one and you could get a double dip with Adunze or Neighbors.
Hmm.
And suddenly you're looking at three number one wide receivers on the same team. More, more Harrison, Neighbors, or Adunze.
Hmm.
Got the talent there. And this is assuming Brock Bowers is probably going to pick in the top 10 because most valuable tight end there. Like no other tight end comes close. Great talent. He's up there with these wide receiver ones.
Hmm.
Like I anticipate somebody's going to pick him in the high in the top 10. But
Yeah.
especially with the your trade of the number one pick last year in Carolina and how lopsided that was and the predicament Carolina found itself in, I never thought other teams would want to pay the pipe for that.
Hmm.
Especially because you got to pay Justin Fields this fifth year option on top of that.
Hmm.
So there's still a chance you can get Marvin if you that like obviously the dream scenario is get Marvin at like 2 or 3 by trading with Washington and New England. But I don't think they'll bite seeing what Carolina did last year. People don't pay attention to them because people
Hmm.
think like, oh, the Bears just got all this haul for the number one pick last year. Just do it again. You think teams want to do that?
Hmm.
No. Nobody wants to be in that spot where like they lost like first round picks, second round picks. Oh yeah, and the number one wide receiver on top of that. Like at that level of talent. Nobody wants to
Hmm.
be in that situation. Like Carolina was in a unique spot because they were starving for a quarterback. And
Hmm.
I think and you saw what happened to them previous season. I don't think teams want to repeat that same mistake. So as a result, unfortunately for the Bears, because they had such a great trade last year, it's hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, I think they're definitely going to get the haul they're looking for. I think it's going to
Hmm.
be a discount compared to what they were hoping for a talent like Caleb Williams or like Justin Fields, like as a quarterback with that fifth year option.
Yeah.
Sorry, random tangent off of that, but I think it needed to be said, like given an important move in the NFC North with this teams clobbering at each other. So let me see if Adam Schefter posted anything, just in case, because you never know, man. You never know when these news are coming together. I don't see anything for now, so should be good there. All right. Number 2 is not flashy, being my number 2 free agency signing, but I think it's an important for like how you build an offense. My pick is Mitch Morse, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think what they're doing, and this is more a reflection of like adding Gabe Davis, but I've never been a big fan of Gabe Davis's number 1 pick. I've been a big fan of Mitch Morse, same team, going to Jaguars. This is great. This is great for Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones. I was a big fan of the Mac Jones. Jaguars have been making a lot of good moves, flying under the radar to like really get depth and consistency at their positions, and that's what I can really appreciate. Mitch Morse is going to bring a lot better protection for the Jaguars. Going to help out with their run game. Going to help out with pass protection. Um, great signing. You're going all in on Trevor Lawrence. I think this is the first important step. And then you look at the contract situation too. He went for 2 years, 10.5 million. And then you look at the Robert Hunt contract. It's like, would I rather have Robert Hunt or would I rather have Mitch Morse? I think I'd take Mitch Morse. Better value, still a great center. And center's an underrated position too because you're going against a lot of great defensive tackles now. Like it used to be just like Aaron Donald, and then now it's like Aaron Donald, Chris Jones. Like there's like obviously Aaron Donald's still like tier 1, but like there's a lot of great like tier 2 or tier 3 defensive tackles now in the league. And you need a guy like Mitch Morse to try and handle it all. Especially when you got Matabuke just got a contract extension. Chris Jones staying. Like if you're thinking about the Jaguars and competing against those teams, like you better have good center and guard play. And they just got Ezra Cleveland out of a trade. They're doing some things on the offensive line, and I appreciate what they're building.
Yeah, I think Mitch Morse, he's a little slow guy. I know there was like questions about like because I know like he had like a little bit of concussion history, and so that's kind of like the one I guess fear you have there. But yeah, honestly, like it was crazy to see how much an awful like how bad the cap space was for the Bills, because obviously we saw all those players getting cut, all of them being like good high pay players as well, and it's like I mean when you're that far below the cap, you know, you gotta make these big time cuts. Luckily the Broncos, I know they were under for a little bit, but now they're technically 40 over with just like contract restructuring and like moving around bonuses and everything. But yeah, it's a tricky game, and so I think, a lot of Bills players will just get signed to pretty nice contracts in other places just because, just the caliber that they got there.
Man, I don't have much to add on the signing. I may have to revise. Like, I feel like I have a good list, but this just came in from Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. 4-time Pro Bowl defensive end Danielle Hunter is signing with the Houston Texans.
Jeez.
Dude, you lose Jonathan Gennard, and like I was saying, the Texans, you do not want to lose him. And then you pair Danielle Hunter with Will Anderson Jr., bro. Oh my gosh. That contract is 2 years, $45 million, but it's fine for the Texans. Like $48 million gives. That's fine. Because guess what? You have a rookie QB like CJ Stroud, turned out to be one of the best like draft day like picks, like from the quarterback spot. So you can afford to make contract decisions like this. There's context with this. With like Christian Wilkins, it's like Las Vegas has to draft somebody now to make this worth it. Like so you can balance the cap and everything like that. But Houston doesn't have to worry about it. So they can afford to make moves like this. Great move. I love this move so much.
Yeah, that's really nice. I honestly, what I think was fun though was just seeing all these pass rushers kind of just moving around this offseason because there are guys like Renard, Bryce Huff, amongst just kind of like some of the names being moved on. Like you got Shaq Barrett as well, but I don't know. It feels like a lot of edge rushers that have done well, like in the past season or two, are moving to new teams, and so it's like a lot of teams lost guys, but then they just ended up signing. It's a completely different dude to fill in the gap that is pretty comparable in terms of production in the past.
And he's gonna still produce. I think he's 31 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's still gonna produce until like 35. Like
yeah, I mean he was one of the sack leaders last season. So like
he had 16.5 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy's gonna eat. That defense just got better for sure. And Jonathan Grenard's a great player, great improvement. But like it's just different, man. Like Danielle Hunter's a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Who tops your free agency list? It's not
my
Danielle.
top player right here was Patrick Queen to the Steelers.
Okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm. I think with this, I touched on it a little bit, but I feel like that like off-ball linebacker position has kind of been the main gaping hole in the Steelers defense, kind of just ever since Shazier, he had his career-ending injury. I think they had hoped Devin Bush would have been that next guy, and he just kind of never developed the way I think a lot of people had expected him to do. But then, like, you look at the rest of the defense, and they got elite players. I mean, you could argue that they, like, with the loss of Patrick Peterson, and he's older, so it's not too bad. But you lost the cornerback there, but you did draft cornerback in the first round last season who played really well. You got elite guys in your front four with like T.J. Watt, and then did Cameron Hayward retire? I know he's like old, but I don't think he did.
I don't think so.
No, right? So you still got him. You got like elite guys down there in your, and then it is like with your safeties, you still got Minkah Fitzpatrick, who I think is one of the best safeties in the league right now. And so it really does come down to your off-ball linebackers are a pretty big weak point. And obviously they're hoping that Russell Wilson kind of can do a little bit better with this offense and kind of get the ball moving a little bit better. And so this defensive signing, I think, just completes their defense. And I wouldn't be surprised to see, like the Steelers defense is one of the best over the course of this upcoming season. And really, being the main force that pushes or continues to push the Steelers into like playoff contention and maybe help them get a deep run there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I already talked about Patrick Queen. Great move.
Mm-hmm.
I just got another piece of news. Guess where Jordan Poyer is going?
Where?
He's going to the Dolphins.
Mm.
A lot of in-division moves, man. And sure, the Dolphins got to beef up their defensive tackles, but like great move from the safety spot. I think that's an underrated signing. I was surprised the Bills had to let him go with the cap problems, but I love the move.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for the big reveal, not that big. Corstian kind of revealed it in his little spiel without realizing it. My free agency move was for a guy who's going to earn $39 million from Corstian's favorite team. It's Russell Wilson, but he's not playing for them. He's playing for the Steelers, and I did this out to spite Corstian just to remind him of how Russell Wilson did not work out that draft trade with the Seattle Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
But all kidding aside, great value. You're getting a guy who put up 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions the season before in a new offense for 1 year, 1.2 million. And then you add on a number one free agency signing like Patrick Queen. You got to think about Watt. You got to think about Pickens. Like signing all these guys, you can really make some things work on a 1 year, $1.2 million budget for like a Super Bowl winning champion QB. And guess what? Guess why I like it? Because of the Steelers quarterback situation.
Mm-hmm.
They have not had a QB like out of their total QBs for the past 2 years, they have not had a single QB exceed like 24 touchdowns from, which is insane. And I think the Steelers have more sacks like this season than like quarterback touchdown passes. And adding Russell Wilson changes the dynamic of that. It's gonna allow Najee Harris to be better, Jalen Warren to keep improving. Fat, not Fat Frymuth, Pat Frymuth. Couldn't get the words out of my mouth. Mixed up my last name and first name. Um, first letters there. Then you got Pickens, you got Deontay Johnson, you got Calvin Austin, a favorite of mine. It's like they have the talent's much better than the Broncos on like the weapon side of it, and I think Russell Wilson's going to eat. The only questions I have is how is he going to fare in the new offensive schemes? But I think from like a quarterback talent perspective, they got way better. They got way better, and like this is one of the moves. Like if somebody gets Russell Wilson, he gets it for 1.2 million value. Great player who can easily have a rebound season at any given moment. This is why it was one of my free agency signings for the money, for the player talent. Absolutely worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that Russell Wilson definitely is an upgrade over the situation. I think the one concern still as well is like, from like things that I've heard from like Steelers fans that like have watched Broncos games and Russell Wilson games, they seem to say that there's actually like in terms of like play style, there's some reason a lot of comparability, like a lot of similarities between Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson, but like Russell Wilson I think is still more of an accurate passer. But yeah, I do think that is still an upgrade. They should see a bump or boost in their offense. It just I think I'm just thinking defensive end. Yeah, and just from watching Russell Wilson, I guess like I don't know what the current state of that Steelers offensive line is right now, but Russell Wilson's play style, as at least the last couple seasons, it seemed to be if the first read isn't like open, he immediately tries to roll out of the pocket, which is obviously not a very good strategy to go with. But I think that, I mean, it's a scary division in terms of pass rush talent, but I do think that I still think that he can see success. I hope he sees success. But yeah.
No, it's fair. It's fair. It remains to be seen because the real question with him is like with his athletic ability clearly diminished. That's the one thing with him. Like, can he produce in a better system?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing because if it's like a one read and then I'm trying to scramble, but I'm slower than I was on the Seahawks. That's gonna be troublesome to me. Yeah, that's a fair point. It's a fair point. I just think if your first reads George Pickens, like Deontay Johnson, that's not a bad op. Like when you're looking at the Broncos, they had problems with their wide receiver room, and I wanted them to play Mims, and I thought Mims should have got more playing time because like he clearly looked like the best receiver out there, but he wasn't starting because like it was Courtland Sutton and like Jerry Jeudy, and like it would have been Tim Patrick, but Tim Patrick was hurt. I think having a talent like Tim Patrick would have helped that offense so much. I think that's not talked about enough, but you have that now with the Steelers. Like George Pickens has been pining for a quarterback like this. Like you talk about Justin Jefferson producing with the quarterbacks he had. Like imagine George Pickens with Russell Wilson. What kind of output he's gonna have? Like it's gonna be a lot more consistent. Like you're talking about like Duck Hodges, like Mason Rudolph, and like Kenny Pickett. Like and Kenny Pickett still could do some things, but like he's not there yet. Like having a guy that has been there, played in the Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl, lost in the last play with a bad read. Like I would give this with that defense. Great move for them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of just how. I mean, all the quarterbacks really. There's a lot of cool quarterback signings overall, I think, or just how these quarterback moves, and more to come in the future, obviously. But yeah, because I think with Russell Wilson, we kind of started to see some of that regression in his last season with the Seahawks, and so I think you really hope that he can continue to stay in good shape and kind of slow down his regression. That it was obviously like a big part of his game was his mobility, but losing that would not be it was obviously not great for any player, but
yeah, No, fair.
Mhm,
So yeah, that wraps up our free agency signings.
mhm.
Before we go, did you have any trades that you really liked that happened in the past couple days?
um, maybe not trades exactly. I mean, like there's like the Joe Mixon one, which I think was kind of fun, but a couple other like free agency moves that I did like was I like Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. I think
Okay.
that was nice. I don't think he's gonna. Well, just coming off the type of injury he did, I don't think he'll be like as good as he was at as he was at the beginning of this last season. But I think he still is definitely an upgrade over what they had last season or what the Falcons did have last season. And so I think it's going to be maybe a slightly better Russell Wilson bump to the offense type kind of move that the Falcons got here. And then Bryce Huff's another one I liked,
I like that
especially
one
just with
too.
like the departures in that Eagles defensive front right there. Kevin Byard's another guy I liked. Uh, I think we saw the peaks of Eddie Jackson, and I think he wasn't the player that people really hoped for him to be long term, and so I think Kevin Byard kind of covers those holes that he kind of just lacks as a player. Frankie Louvu and then Aziz Al Shair are just two
That
other
was a good move.
guys that I
Jair went to
was
the Texans, right?
uh-huh. Yeah, and so I think those are both other guys that I think um, weren't like again the common household names, but I think are really solid players. Kind of like how the Bears linebacker signings were last season, like what T.J.
Yeah.
Edwards and like Tremaine Edmonds. Like they aren't the flashiest players, but they're really solid linebackers, and
Yep.
I think they'll do really good things for the respective teams that they went to.
Yeah. No. Great talk about that. Yeah. There's one trade I didn't mention: the Brian Burns trade to New
Mm-hmm.
York. New York's front four is looking dangerous. You're talking about Burns, Thibodeau, and then Dexter Lawrence on the same line. Now that's scary. That's scary. All they're missing is like that other defensive end, and they could probably address it in the draft or have a low cost move. But wow, like that's talk about talent. Talk about talent. Great move for them. And I think they had to send over a 2 and a 5
Mm-hmm.
to Carolina. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous. Like you think about Carolina trading Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and Brian Burns, and you would think they would get like a massive haul for those Louis, and it's kind of underwhelming to be honest when
Mm-hmm.
you look at those moves. So yeah, that was probably one of my favorites. I think when you're speaking of like free agency signings that didn't make my top five, I think Darnell Mooney to those
Mm-hmm.
Falcons.
Yeah.
It's a great move for them because he is a great secondary option. Just wasn't used in the system like as well because like Bears had a lot of problems outside of that. Um, I think like the who's the Rams offensive coordinator who's now the OC? Zach Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Robinson, like I think he's a budding offensive mind from what I've seen of him. And having like Darnell Mooney as like the fourth option because you got Bijan, obviously. You got Kyle Pitts and you got Drake London. That'd be a great situation for him. Like he's gonna get the Kirk is gonna target him for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Great get. That's a move I really liked for sure. Um, and yeah, I think we covered it. And then probably the Danielle Hunter move
Mm-hmm.
to Texans. That's something that's doing something special. I can't talk about enough about like what the Texans are
Mm-hmm.
building.
Yep.
Alrighty, so that'll be it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Keep tabs on what we do. Next episode, we're probably gonna recover like the free agent signings if anything special pops up.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, um, stay tuned for that. Next week and the next couple of weeks, we're gonna start diving into the draft, different position groups, what we like, what we value, like round one and round two. I know you guys really like that draft series we covered last time, so that should be fun as we get to know more players. But
Mm-hmm.
um, guys, you know what to do. Follow us on our Instagram at amon.a.mission, an Instagram handle there. If I try it, I'm gonna mess up. So Corstian's got it in the bag as usual in 2 seconds like that. If you don't want to follow us on Instagram and you just want to find our podcast videos, that's fine too. You can find us at Amon a Mission, where you're probably watching this episode right now. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so you never miss a vid. All right, guys, take it easy and enjoy the madness.
Peace out.